I'm Kenzie Moore, and I'm going to be presenting Part 1, pages 9 through 113 of His Hawaiian Excellency by Nicholas R. Schweizer. Here we have two emblems of Hawaii, while it was sovereign and while it was not. The story begins briefly in Hawaii in 1938. It was a celebration of Queen Likulani's birthday, 100 years ago that day. It's from an old man's point of view, who we currently do not know the identity of. He is taking in the surroundings, the ocean, the Royal Hawaiian Band, and the remaining Hawaiian royalty present. Up above, we have a picture of Queen Likulani herself, and to the right of that, we have a picture of one of the celebrations for her birthday. We then go back in time to a restaurant in Hotel Central Naya in Russia in 1883. The characters presented are Count von Lambsdorff, a diplomat from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in St. Petersburg, Colonel Curtis E. Kauea, a diplomatic representative sent by the king to represent Hawaii in Moscow for the coronation, Henry Poor, Colonel E. Kauea's well-qualified secretary and a diplomat himself, Tatiana, the youngest daughter in a family and is studying in Switzerland. She is associated with Nihilist Party. To the right, we have a picture of Colonel E. Kauea. In the restaurant, it is told from Count von Lambsdorff's point of view when he meets the Hawaiian diplomats and spends a while trying to figure out who they could be and where they could be from. He is interrupted by Tanya when telling the story of the assassination of Tsar Alexander II, who displays her nihilist beliefs. The diplomats head to the coronation. The picture to the bottom right is Count Lambsdorff. Here we have the map. The first half of Part 1 takes place mainly in Moscow, where the coronation occurs. After that, they head to just above it to St. Petersburg. Train to Moscow. The diplomats board the train and head to von Lambsdorff's carriage to carry on the conversation and learn more about each other's countries. Von Lambsdorff invites the Hawaiians to dinner at his house in St. Petersburg after the coronation in Moscow, and they gladly accept. The diplomats drink Russian vodka while they exchange cultural customs such as language and food until it's time to go to sleep. Here we have a picture of what a train would have looked like back then. Tsar's arrival in Moscow. The characters here are Alexander III, Emperor and autocrat of all the Russias, King of Poland, King of Finland, Tsar of Moscow, Grand Duke of Kiev, Vladimir, and too many other dominions for the book to even mention. To the right, we have a picture of the Tsar himself. There is a grand celebration for his arrival, and von Lambsdorff helped explain the surroundings to E. Kauea and Poor, the people and the building and what's going on. The Tsar, along with his family, are headed to the Cathedral of the Archangels, where the Metropolitan of Moscow will conclude the day's ceremony. To the right, we have a picture of where the Tsar arrived. E. Kauea's hotel room. While E. Kauea is daydreaming, the flabbergasted Henry Poor interrupts with news. Poor inquired information from the British Mr. Kennedy, who then asked why Mr. Poor came to him instead of the Americans, because Hawaii was basically now viewed as an American colony because of the treaty. The treaty gave America exclusive rights to the ports in Hawaii. This outraged the diplomats, who were very resolved about Hawaii's sovereignty. This then led to an argument between the men about where the blame of this problem lies, whether or not the missionaries are responsible. E. Kauea's hotel room. After attending the Tsar's coronation, E. Kauea has a foretelling nightmare about the Tsar, then a Hawaiian lady up in flames, ending with a blissful triple rainbow. Abruptly awoken by the dream, E. Kauea replays the day's festivities in his head at the Kremlin Palace. The coronation of the Tsar, how kindly he was received even though he represented a small, faraway island. Instead of further questioning the dream, he attributed it to the amount he drank and went back to sleep. To the right, we have a picture of the Tsar during the coronation. Nadia's estate. This part of the story is told about two totally separate stories to give you a little bit of an outside perspective. The characters are Princess Katya, fashionable, tall, well-proportioned blonde with blue eyes, and Princess Nadia, wife of one of Russia's wealthiest men, owner of a huge forest and larger estate, and appeared to be more well-informed people in Russia about the islands, and has wrote books depicting noble savages. Katya arrives at Nadia's estate with news to be told of the events that occurred the previous night at the Kremlin Palace. Katya was surprised, to say the least, by the Hawaiian diplomat. She had very little background knowledge on his homeland, and displayed her previous ignorance when she states, "You're a noble savage from the Cannibal Islands." She describes how Ikawe swept her off her feet with his manners, speaking ability, and alluring physical appearance. By the end of the night, she was convinced that she was in love. Train to St. Petersburg. The Hawaiian diplomats are headed to the city of St. Petersburg and engaging in conversation on the train, examining the way of life in Russia and how it varies throughout the nation. There were some parts that were a lot more wealthy and some parts that were a lot more poor. The people in these parts seemed to be totally different. Poor shares with E. Kauea a part of Odysseus' novel that he can't comprehend, Teresa's prophecy. This is pictured to the right. Carriage through St. Petersburg. The Hawaiian diplomats are warmly welcomed by Count von Lambsdorff, along with his two friends, the colonel and the mayor. They all board a carriage and begin the tour of the magnificent city, ending in the office of Alexander's foreign ministry, where they converse the standing with Hawaii and the other nations. E. Kauea got so caught up in the conversation that he left himself open to scrutiny about the treaty made with the Americans, but the Russian diplomat did undertake the subject. To the right, we have a picture of St. Petersburg around that time. Dinner party. E. Kauea sat at a place of honor at the dinner table of von Lambsdorff and was delighted with a delectable meal. Following the dinner, the men began a game of Russian billiards, accompanied with a heated political matter-based conversation, specifically addressing immigrants and the location of the country's capital. Henry Poor at the ballet. Henry Poor was excused by E. Kauea from the dinner party and instead attended the ballet performance by students graduating a reputable school. He finds himself in a trance of the beautiful movements in which he compared to the hula, only to be broken by the astonishment of the presence of the rebellious girl from the hotel restaurant, Tanya, who gives him an address with an intriguing invite, if you wish to find out about the true Russia. To the right, we have a picture of an old Russian ballet dancer. The Nihilist Party. Henry Poor reluctantly makes the decision to give up his night off and go to the mysterious address given to him by Tanya, and quickly finds himself in the middle of a nihilist party. We have a picture of the nihilist to the right. He finds out the reasoning behind their cause, their hatred for the current government, and that their main goal is a revolution to tear down the current political system in which they view to be corrupt and to rebuild it. Throughout the night, it may be fair to say that Poor was more interested in the passion within Tanya's voice than the words that were being produced. Tanya and Poor in the carriage. Tanya and Poor concluded their conversation along with their time together, ending with a heated debate due to Poor still being noticeably unconvinced by the nihilist party, but nearly in love with Tanya, who is fiercely